I was looking at, trying to figure out agents and all that, and I ran across Trident Media, which is, big agency, and one of the I'd heard that you should look for one of the newer agents because they would be looking for, yeah. So I had set my sights on Jenny Bent. I thought that Jenny Bent was my ideal agent. Now I learned that was not true. I'm sure she is incredible, but she's not my ideal agent. And there are reasons for that, but it's not important.
Right.
But anyway, I was
talking. Just think it's so hard to get her today.
Yeah. Well, I was stalking Jenny Bent, and so she had put this thing online somewhere. I don't know if it was on their website or on her blog or somewhere. She had put this perfect pitch letter or one of her best pitch letters or something like that.
Karin had.
And it was Jenny had. And it was Karin's pitch letter from when she pitched the novel that would become her first published novel, Bet Your Bottom Dollar, I think, was the first one. It was the first in the bottom of the Dollar Girl series or whatever, which was so cute. So I read that book and I thought, okay, if Jenny represented this, it's Southern fiction and it's upbeat and it's fun and it's humorous and this is the tone that I'm looking for. I'm trying to write, and I'm thinking that she would be a good agent for me. So I had been stalking Jenny, and then I found Karin.
Jenny was Karin's agent.
She was Karin's agent, and so I decided then that I was going to check out Karin's books, and I enjoyed them so much. And so then years later, I met her at the South Carolina Book Festival. I think that's the first time I ever met her, and we got to talking, and then I introduced her to the folks from Henry Press who were there, and then she was getting the rights back for those first 3 novels, I think, at that time, and was trying to decide what to do with them.
Right.
And then she ended up going with Henry Press, and so she and I were published by the same publisher for a while. And then I let her tell the rest of that story. But that's how I came to be stalking Karin Gillespie. I don't stalk her anymore. We're friends. And she's here of her own
accord. I'm in a writing group with her.
She's here of her own accord. She is not under any duress.
That's right.
She has not been stalked.
Yeah, I didn't strong arm her in the writing group either. We've met once on Edisto Island. My author friend Michelle Stone, who lives here in Spartanburg, where I live, invited me to join. It's kind of a regrouping of an old group because 2 of their members, have gotten older, and so have moved to other places. So it's Michelle, me, Karin, Mindy Gillespie, and Caroline.
Mindy Friddle.
Oh gosh, why did I say that? Oh, because I was thinking that Karin Gillespie. Let me start over. It's Karin Gillespie, me, Michelle Stone, Caroline Cleveland, and Mindy Friddle. So we had a day long. We don't critique one another's manuscripts per se. I mean, we could ask that question, but we really our first meeting was just a day of sort of inspiration. What had we been reading? What do we know that's new out in the publishing world? What are some of the new challenges? What are people's successes? It was really good.
Mm-hmm. It sounds fun. Now, have you ever been a part of a writing group where you read each other's pages and whatnot?
I have not. I have always resisted that, Susan. I just don't. I am reading Michelle's new manuscript. It's already been taken for publication, but I'm reading it now. I love to read people's manuscripts individually and comment on them, but I have just never, I don't know, it's never appealed to me to be in a group and talk about one another's manuscripts, even though I taught creative writing for years and years at the community college, and that was my setup. We were in workshop and we talked about one another's manuscripts, but I was the teacher. It's kind of different. I just never wanted the pressure. Have you? Yeah, and you like it?
Well, I haven't done it in many years, but when I was first writing before I was published, and then for a few years after I was published, maybe several books in the Lewis Talbot series, I was a member of, I still am a member of the group. Now it's called South Carolina Writers Association, but then it was South Carolina Writers Workshop.
Yeah.
And we would meet at what used to be the Open Book over on Pleasantburg, and twice a month. It was like the second Tuesday and fourth Thursday. I don't know. It was twice a month, a Tuesday and a Thursday. And we would go into the back room there, sit around the table, and everybody would bring 5 pages. and we would read aloud, and everybody would write. Everybody got a copy of your pages,
Yeah.
and so everybody would write notes on it. But then we'd discuss it, and so
Well, that was a really good organized way to do it.
It really
Yeah.
was, and I got so much out of that.
That's-
And even though there were very few people in my genre in that group, it was just a wide
Sure,
variety.
wide range.
There was everything from poets to people writing science fiction to people writing memoirs to, I mean, just one gentleman, friend, it turned out to be a friend, wrote an Elvis blog. I mean, just all kinds of things. But some of those folks I have been friends with for many years,
Yeah,
you know, and I'm happy
nice.
that it was a good experience. Nice. And it was we would meet, we would all read each other's pages, we would write notes on it. And I remember I could not wait to get home and read what people had written, because sometimes they would write things that we didn't discuss. You know, sometimes people didn't want to discuss, you know, and so you would want to read everybody's notes, and if somebody caught a typo, or, you know, if a sentence tripped them up or something, they would mark it. And so I would go straight home and just devour those pages, because I was so hungry for input on my writing at that point, because it was still so new, you know. And so I enjoyed that. And then we would go out to dinner afterwards, you know, and so it was a social thing with other writers. And it was the first time I really had that.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it so much.
And I enjoyed this summer, I was at the Sewanee Writers workshop for 2 weeks, and I was in a writing group for 2 weeks, and I very much enjoyed that. Maybe because our leaders, you know, who were Maurice Ruffin and Jill McCorkle, who were incredible authors, you know, were kind of guiding the discussion, and all of those folks in that workshop were published authors. So that, you know, there was plenty I could learn from them, you know, so I really did enjoy that. But I don't know, I've just never, probably I should, maybe I'd be better off if I was in a writing group like that. But I'm going to enjoy my new writing group that's inspirational.
Right. Now that's the group with Karin. Okay. So how often are y'all going to meet?
Well, I don't know how often. Maybe once a quarter, something like that. We didn't really decide, but I think Mindy is kind of the organizer of that group.
Okay. So maybe I think it would be a good thing to touch on while we have been, before our food gets here, at which point we'll probably, after we you know, show our food, we'll probably cut the camera
and it is going to be good
while we eat, so that we can eat, and then Karin will arrive about 1, and so we'll be cutting in and out. But one thing I thought we could talk about is, because we mentioned periodically that you are a literary writer and I am a commercial writer, and because I'm working on a new book right now, sometimes I read you know, craft books and things like that, just to kind of refresh different things, and to kind of I don't know, just get the juices flowing, you know, before I'm working on a specific scene or whatever. And so something I was reading yesterday was highlighting the differences between commercial and literary fiction. And
I like the combination of the two.
Right. And what this
it's like to sell a book.
What this particular source said, their take on the main difference was that for a literary novel, the journey is mostly internal. And so you see, like, there's not as much action. It's more of a calm rise and then to a conclusion of some sort. But for commercial fiction, it's much more about the external journey, the plot. It's more about plot. Yeah. And so more happens. It's more of an active story, and you have a lot more of these beats leading up to the conclusion.
Yes.
So
and I mean, that's kind of the way when people ask me the difference between commercial fiction and literary fiction, because there's a sweet spot in between too. I mean, I think Pat Conroy is a good example of that. But it's that literary fiction is more character driven, that you're living the life of that person, and that you know, very realistic human being.
So more into the fine nitty gritty of that person's life.
Of the human nature. Whereas commercial fiction is more plot driven. What's happening? You know, you're gonna remember more what happened, and a literary drama, if you read Catcher in the Rye, you're going to remember Holden Caulfield.
Mhm.
You won't ever forget him.
Mhm. Okay. All right. So
That's the way I think of it. It's very
No.
similar to what
Yeah,
they were saying. Very
I think
similar.
it's, yeah, I think it's very similar. So, and similar to my understanding of as well. I just thought it would be something good to touch on.
Yes.
So now we have this lovely cream of mushroom soup. We have bowls of this.
Oh, it looks so
It looks
good.
delicious. And some of these wonderful homemade crackers that they make that I love. And we're going to have our soup, and we will check back in
Just a bit.
in just a few minutes. All right. So
All right.
welcome
so
to the
we begin?
Lowcountry Book Club Book of the Month discussion. Susan and I are here. The two Southern Susans are here today with Karin Gillespie, the author of Pitch Queen. Karin has an MFA in creative writing from Converse College. She is also a former book columnist for the Augusta Chronicle, a former humor columnist for the Augusta Magazine, and a recipient of the Georgia Author of the Year Award. I'm so impressed. I actually don't think I knew that until I started looking into it. She's been published in the New York Times and Washington Post. The Pitch Queen, Karin's 8th novel, is that right?
Wow.
Was released
No, 9th. It's the
Ninth.
9th.
ninth novel.
Wow.
Was released June 14th, 2024.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, yes.
Thanks.
Okay, so Karin, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you originally from? Who are your people?
Yeah, so I am actually from Minnesota, Rochester, Minnesota, where the Mayo Clinic is. But I always like to say I've been in the South for a long time, or I got here to the South as soon as I could. So when I was 13.
I have used that line. Well, I've always lived in the South. I mean, I'm from North Carolina, but I got to South Carolina as quick as I could. And I have to say that I borrowed that line from Pat Conroy. I heard him say it.
Oh, he said it? I've heard a lot of people say it. So,
Okay.
I love it. But I mean, I love the South. You know, I mean, I liked Minnesota, but it's cold there. Cold.
You are in the South in Savannah.
I have been
I
in
am.
Minnesota recently. Well, we took my son to Minnesota to Mayo Clinic recently. So anyway,
Yeah.
it was snowing. It was a blizzard, and it was
Yeah.
anyway. I support your decision to move south.
Well, it wasn't mine. I was 13, you know, but it was a little bit of different because I had to take social dance. You know, I had never heard of that. They don't have that in Minnesota and all. So it was a challenge. But I think I love writing about the South, and I think the reason is because I have I have an outsider's view. You know,
Right.
Well, and truly, you must love it because you write about it. And
I can't imagine setting a book anywhere else. But
And well, you've been here since you were 13.
yeah, exactly.
Nouveau Southern, don't you?
Yeah,
think she's
I like
Nouveau
that
Southern?
term. I like that. Nouveau Southern.
Okay, all right. I'm sorry. Susie, it's your turn.
Oh, okay. Well, is there anything else you want to say about background? Like you said, who are your people?
Well, I did. That was kind
Okay.
of a joke, but
All right,
by
that's
all
fine.
means, tell us about your people.
No, or we can move on.
My people, well, Minnesotan people, you know, and but now we're Southern, and I'm married. I have been married for almost 20 years. We're going to be celebrating 20 years. I have a son
Now,
who is
are your
37.
husbands from the South?
Pardon me?
Are your husband's people from?
No, he's from Brooklyn.
Oh, too young.
Oh.
No, I'm teasing. I was just explaining to Susie earlier how I used to stalk you. I think I've told you that story. when I was first trying to get published.
Yes, I remember. Yes, we go back a while.
Yeah, we do. All right.
And you said you have a son.
Oh, I do. He's 37. And then the most important member of my family is Rosie, who is maybe 7, and she's Havanese mix. So
Oh, nice.
really cute rescue. So yeah, that's my family.
That sounds like a nice one.
And you're in
It
Savannah.
is. It is. I'm very lucky.
Savannah? You're in Savannah now?
Oh, yes. I'm in Savannah. We've been here 2.5 years. We love it. I love Savannah because it has great food. and great walking. And you need both of those things. You know, if you love food, you're going to have to walk a lot, you know. So those are my two favorite things about Savannah.
Well, so that sort of segues into the first question here, which is a setting question about the novel. What did you have a specific island that's the inspiration? In the Pitch Queen, we were thinking it might be Tybee Island, which is near Savannah.
Right. So someone said they could picture MKA on Tybee.
Yeah, I didn't want to choose a specific thing because I wanted to be as flexible as I could, because my setting is a book loving beach. I don't know that there is one like that. So, but yeah, Tybee was the inspiration for gosh, I can't even remember the name of the site. Oh my goodness, Gull Island. Yeah. Yes.
I do that sometimes. So there was a follow-up question to that. Kathy Oswald said that she loved the idea of books in every business and bookstore in the town. It would be a wonderful town to visit. Is there a town like this? And I think you just touched on that. Is this fictional, or is there a town like this to your knowledge?
No, I have never seen that. No. There is what is that place? Seaside, that has a lot of bookstores where the Truman Show was filmed. But no, I thought, oh, how fun it would be that where reading was the whole focus at this beach town. You know,
I loved it.
That was a lot of fun.
Okay, is it my turn again?
Yes, it's your turn again.
Okay, so now we were talking about food in Savannah earlier, and good walking and good food. So someone wondered if there is a restaurant called the Pink House in Savannah.
There is. Oh my gosh. Oh, if you ever come to Savannah, the Pink House is a must go to. It's really an institution. And yes, there is, and it has the best Southern food there. And I just love that place. I go, it's hard to get it. You have to have reservations and all that because it's so popular. But yes, and it's in the historical district with the live oaks and all of that. So it's beautiful.
Oh, nice.
It sounds lovely.
Well, the other half of this question, which is not exactly related, but still has to do with setting, I suppose. I know about in a lot of places in the South, and it's become more popular in the last 20 years. You know, paint outdoor ceilings blue. You want to tell folks why that is?
Haint blue is what it's called, and a haint is a ghost. So if you go into a lot of porches will be painted blue, the ceiling, to keep ghosts away. All right. So and I see it all over Charleston, less so in Savannah, but you certainly see it everywhere in the South.
I think now you do. I know when I was a little girl, I mean, that's been a long time ago. I remember riding somewhere and my father pointing out, do you see that ceiling over there? It's like we were riding down the road and it's blue underneath there. And I said, yeah, Daddy, why is that ceiling blue? He says, keep the ghosts away.
Right.
So that's a long time ago. It's an old tradition.
It is an old tradition in the South, but the question was, is it true? And honestly,
is it true?
I don't have a clue. Do you?
Does it keep ghosts away? Does it? Okay, so Savannah is the country's most haunted city. So probably no. Ghosts everywhere in Savannah. You go down into Savannah, there's a ghost tour going somewhere, at some point. Yeah, it's fun.
Charleston has those too, but probably there are more ghosts than, I don't know.
Well, I've heard that Savannah's the most haunted town.
It probably is, yeah.
Yeah, oh my goodness, yes.
Okay. So tell us about the New York scenes. Have you spent time in New York, and did you go there to research this book?
Oh, yes. I have spent a lot of time in New York. My husband is from Brooklyn, so we visit regularly. And so I didn't visit specifically for this novel, but I was familiar enough, with New York. And we used to go pre-pandemic, like almost once a year. So Yeah.
So the
And
restaurants and so forth that you used, are those real or did you make those up?
the restaurants are real. Yeah, I researched restaurants that maybe an agent would like to take clients, and certainly I have been taken to restaurants like that, similar by my agent once upon a time. So yes.
Yes. Nice.
Yes, that is a path I have not walked, but it sounds lovely.
It does.
They pay. So that's nice.
Okay. So tell us about the inspiration for Claire. How much of you is in Claire?
Oh, that's a great question. I do have that ambitious type A side.
Yeah,
So I did draw from that. And that is obviously Claire's all about that number one deal, getting that number one deal. And so, yeah, I would say so. And as I get older, I'm much less that way, but I recognize that when I was younger, just always so focused on the next accomplishment.
right.
So,
That's type A. Goal driven.
well, I think almost every author has a little type A in them because it
Right.
is daunting
That's
to
right. If we did, we
business.
didn't. I mean,
We-
you
we
never
give
get
up.
to the end.
We just give up.
That's right. You give
Yeah.
up. People,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
how do you ever get to the end of a book? How do you ever write it?
Right.
The only answer I have is tenacity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
And
it.
just negotiating it all,
Yeah.
you all know. So it's like you have to have a certain amount of drive, or it's just not going to work. So.
Right. Right.
Mm-mm. I know a lot of people who could write some really good books and who are really good writers, but they don't have the drive to do
Right.
it. You know?
Right.
So look, the Claire's significant other, I'm going to ask about because I really did do like the Philip. I think I like his oddity, being a rare book dealer, and seems to be a pauper, but he's actually a wealthy man. He's a gentleman and he's a nerd. And I want to say this quote because I love this philosophy. I came to love books for their content instead of their resale value. And then skip some. Books have given me so much insight and solace. I want to pass those gifts to others. That made me want to meet Philip. Is he a complete imaginary character, or is he a composite of some folks or ideas?
I wanted to create. Well, first of all, there are a lot of Phillips in the South. I feel like sort of that shabby, genteel presentation. I've met a lot like that. But what I wanted in Philip was a contrast to Claire, a big contrast in that both of them at one point both saw books, see books in a way that has to do with their marketing value and so on. And Philip is ahead of Claire. He finally discovers the true jewels in books that Claire, misses. So that's sort of how I came up with him. I wanted him to be a little ahead of her and for her to feel like I like this man. I would like to be more like him.
Yes, because she's, at least initially, so focused on the product and
Right.
not its content.
Exactly. Like I think everybody in publishing, they get into it because they love books, but sometimes you sort of lose sight of that. I think we all do, you know, because it's just, you get caught up in the business end of it. So, yeah.
So Stephanie Belcher says, I would also like to know about the family dynamic. Was this a personal experience or something you may have watched a friend going through? It seems to me that Claire's life as a whole may have been much different if she would have been raised by her mother rather than her stepmother. Was that contrast built into the story intentionally, stuffy city stepmother against relaxed, laid-back beach mom on Gull Island?
Yes. And I'm just going to, I wanted, first of all, I want to talk about the father for just a minute, because that's really more
Mhm.
what I got from when I was growing up. My father was a CEO of a hospital, and I was always Ed Gillespie's daughter. So I
Mhm.
liked that dynamic of Claire always being compared to her father, this super novelist, you
Mhm.
know. And then the stepmother is, yeah, I mean, she was just always driven by the jealousy
Right.
of the real mother, and so that was that was that kept them apart, you know, the real mother and everything. And Claire sort of viewed her mother as a loser because she was looking at her mother through the stepmother's eyes, who
Right.
was very success oriented in many ways, you know.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So that's kind of what was going on there.
Except for Claire.
I know, but she comes to learn otherwise, though it is too late
Right.
to talk about it with a woman who's still alive. But
Right. And that's one of the greatest regrets of Claire, is that she discovers her mother not just through clients and the letters that her mother leaves but behind, but also through the things she underlines in books and stuff. And it's
right,
Mhm.
yeah, that's
yeah.
right.
So
As if
uh
it takes-
it's sad that she didn't get to know this wonderful mother of hers.
Mhm. It's sad.
It is. It is. Okay. Okay, this is from a reader, Eileen Carter, who says, I'd love to know where you, Karin, got her idea for this book about publishing, which is also a love story, and whether it is at all based on a true love story.
Not based on a true love story, but I will talk about how I got the idea. So I am a big fan of this site called Publishers Marketplace. And I
Mhm.
like to look at all the deals that are made, right?
Mhm.
And so, and I especially debut novelists, I'm always interested in what kind of stories publishing is interested in. And I went back for years looking at 6- and 7-figure deals, and I thought, I don't know any of these people. These people, who are these people?
Mhm.
What happened to them? And so I did some research, and I would find that they disappeared after that first big splashy novel, you know.
Right.
And so that is where the germ of the idea came from. I said, oh wow, how does that happen? And um you know, what are the repercussions? And I was thinking of it from the author's point of view. I was
Right.
thinking, you know,
Exactly.
um how would it feel, even though it'd be really exciting to get $1 million deal, or you know, a 6-figure deal? um how does it feel if that's the only deal you get because you were overpaid, you know, and you'll never get another book deal again? And that's what happens to a lot of authors.
Because you never
Right.
earn your advance.
Right.
Yeah.
That's correct. That's correct. And it's sad, you know. And so I
It's
wanted to talk about that. I wanted to look at it from every point of view. You know, like I have a character, as you know, the editor that
Mhm.
that gets this big advance, and then her book doesn't do too well, and then another person, Wendy, who is just what happens is, you in publishing, is when they give you a lot of money, they'll be like, oh, you're the best thing since sliced bread, you know. You're wonderful. I remember the first time I went into meet a publisher, and the publisher actually said to me, are you ready to be a star?
Oh my goodness.
Heady stuff, you know, heady stuff. Your head gets so, you know, big and inflated, and then what happens, and the book doesn't do well. And anyway, so I just said, I don't feel like this story has been told, so I wanted to tell it.
Right.
Yeah, I loved it. I
Yeah, I
absolutely.
did too.
I guess we're authors, so
Right. Right. Right.
you know, it speaks to us on a
Well, it's
Yeah.
interesting that you mentioned that because I was wondering when I wrote it and when I put it out, because I just wanted to,
Mhm.
would non-authors like it? And I have found that they have. So that's good.
Yes, because
And
you've given them insight
Right.
into the reality, some of the realities
Yeah.
of the publishing
There
industry.
was quite a bit of conversation about your book in the group, and I think a lot of people really enjoyed it who are not writers and have no aspiration to be a writer, but they just find it so interesting.
Curious about the process.
And there's more. We'll talk a lot more about the
Yes.
publishing piece of it later. But we've got to get through the artistic choices and craft things first, and I think that's what, so Diana McGoldrick asked, did you know how it would end before you wrote it, or was it organic and a surprise and you let the story lead you there? Are you, Karin, a pantser or a plotter?
I have most of my books are pantsters, and but then I got to a point where I just could not figure out the endings. I spent a lot of time on a book, maybe 3 years, and I couldn't fix it. So now I always know how my character is going to change or arc, and I knew that my character would learn from these events, so yes, I know the ending, that she will come around. All right. I didn't know about the mother or any of those kind of things. That I
How she do it, you just
Mhm.
knew what she would do.
Right, exactly. And honestly, the way I do it now is I write. I must know what my character wants, and I must know the obstacles and how they change, and that is all I know. And then what I'll do is I'll write a scene. I'll take a walk, and during the walk, little whispers will say, "Well, this needs to happen. This needs to happen." That's how I get through a whole book. So, if I couldn't walk, I don't know what I would do. So.
Interesting process.
I do that sometimes when I swim
Mhm.
because I can't, I usually listen to books on,
Right.
when I walk. When you swim, well, by golly, there is nothing else you can do but think.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you know what? I was very interested in this process of creativity, and basically, when you're walking, the motion lulls the left side of your brain, the logical part, to let that creative part kind of take over. And it really works well for me. I have never, ever since this time where I have this new way of looking at it, I have never gotten stuck ever again. The answer comes. But I think, and I'm sure that y'all would probably agree with this too, is that the more you do it, the more you trust that process.
Right.
Well,
And
I didn't know there was science behind
No, I
it,
didn't
because I
either.
really do sometimes figure things out. I'm swimming, and also I thought of the whole subplot I had to think up with my first novel on a long bike ride.
Mhm.
So I guess that's
I do
interesting.
I do that walking sometimes. I mean, I'll walk. Sometimes it's around the neighborhood. Sometimes it's on the beach. Sometimes it's on a treadmill at the gym.
Mhm.
But I do the thing where you walk and you think,
I knew there was science behind that.
I
Wow.
had no idea.
Oh yeah. Well, or anything would work. I mean, it could be washing dishes, or it could be taking a shower, or anything that kind of calms that, the thinking mind, the kind of critical thinking mind.
Mhm.
You're doing something active,
Mhm.
physical.
Yeah. Or drives, which
Right.
is inconvenient. If you've ever taken a drive and all of a sudden, plot point. Oh no. So.
Well, now this question, you allude to lots of wonderful books in this novel. Some of my favorite books.
Oh.
In the beginning, of course, Claire is this big time agent for debut novelists. She's peddling flawed books that she doesn't even bother to fully read. So she's selling books based on the concept, of the novel, not the depth or the quality of the novel itself. And as we just talked about earlier, unfortunately, that is sometimes very true in today's market, but we talked about that. So I see these allusions as foreshadowing. I love how I think it's foreshadowing for Claire's true depth of feeling regarding these many fine critically acclaimed novels, and The Book Thief, Captain Corelli's Mandolin, As I Lay Dying, Hemingway's A Movable Feast, Tolstoy's The Death of Ivan Ilyich, Maya Angelou's I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, You're in Savannah, Midnight in the Garden of Good.
Yeah. Got it.
That my father asked me one time if I read, and I told the truth and said no. Jane Eyre.
Oh, it's so fun.
I've got to do it. The Bluest Eye, and then Life of Pi. But my favorite, you mentioned my all-time favorite, and I mentioned this earlier, and that's Catcher in the Rye. Because if you ask me, Holden Caulfield has one of the best rendered voices in American literature. Now, the one you mentioned over and over is Donald. The
Yes.
History. So I'm really curious as to why that's Claire's favorite book, since she's pretty partial to happy books, I guess we would call them. And, it's been a long time since I read The Secret History, but it's an incredible novel, but it is dark. It's about, as I recall, these elite college students who end up committing a murder, and then they've got all of these issues and all. They're in a Greek class together. For those of you who maybe have not read it, and they're sort of brainwashed, I guess you'd say, by their Greek professor. But it's a dark novel. So tell me, what is the thing with The Secret History?
Secret History, yeah. Well, it is my favorite novel. And pardon me?
I said,
why? Yeah. So, you're right. I don't like dark. I don't usually read dark stuff. I usually read what I write, so happy endings and all of that. But I think what I really enjoyed about that is the class differences. It's an outsider looking in. Mm-hmm. And that was, I do allude to that a little bit in the novel is that Claire is an outsider looking in,
Right. Are you're talking about the narrator in The Secret History, Richard?
Yes, Richard. Yeah. Richard is, his fatal flaw is that he wants to be part of this very elite and very affluent group,
right?
And he's not like them at all, and he's always trying to pass himself off as he is. He'll get a jacket from the thrift store that's not really nice, and he does not share his humble background with them. And I think that's what fascinates me about the novel, and it might say something about my psychology is outsider looking in. I'm always
and it does have a tie.
Yeah. So that is what it is, because part of me just said, I just like that novel, but no, of course it has to, relate.
The characterization in that novel, for her to have fully rendered all those different.
Yeah. It's beautifully written too. And that's another reason I like it. And it just amazing to me that was her debut too,
I know.
See, this is one I have not read. Precisely because it's dark,
Yeah, Susan doesn't like dark.
I just don't read dark.
The murder is pretty much off stage, I believe.
It is.
Well, yeah. It's not scary
in these characters.
It sounds like these are very dark characters, and
you got a brother.
Well, they're they are what do you call it? They're privileged. They're
entitled.
Is there anyone in the book you can root for?
Oh yes. Oh yeah, I think so. Okay. I like those twins. I feel like.
Oh, is their name Camilla?
Yes. You would rate, and to a certain extent, the Bunny, who is the one, and it says it on the first page, that gets killed. He's also like Richard in that he's outsider looking in. He has all of the trappings of wealth, but his parents don't give him any money. It's actually like like Philip, who comes off as one of these, the poor aristocracy or whatever.
But I'm thinking, since you have both read and loved this book, I must read it, or at least attempt to,
Yes.
and I will report back.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So the next question, when now we're tiptoeing into the publishing end of it a little deeper.
Okay.
Diana McGoldrick asked, or she says, her comment is, made me wonder if the publishing world is really as cutthroat as the book painted it out to be. While it may be cutthroat in the industry, do you feel that's the exception or the rule? And there were so many variations of this question. I'm going to read a couple more before I hush. Pat Dupuy said, reminds me of sports agents and sharks. Is the publishing world that treacherous? Becky Rice, oh, I loved it. I enjoyed the journey. Claire went on to discover herself, and what truly makes her happy. Is the publishing world that cutthroat? And several other people asked that question. So, all right, now I'll let you answer it.
Well, I think that people do get into it for all of the right reasons. In general, it's usually not well paid at all, particularly if you're an editor or all that. So you must love books, but it is very difficult in some ways to make a living at it. Claire wanted to find a new a novelist like her father. She wanted to represent literary fiction and good writing and all of that kind of stuff. Well, that's hard to, as you know, she almost starved doing that. So I would say that, okay, and here's full disclosure, I've had 5 agents, so all different variations, and no one like Claire, I'm going to say that. But yeah, agents have to make a living, and they want to sell the things that to editors that they'll buy, and it's a lot about the hot new thing. All right, and so that's why you see so much repetition and so on. And yes, I mean, authors all the time are dropped by agents if that first book doesn't do well. So yeah, that happens all the time. I think it's roughest on the author. Next comes the editors, who are overworked. All right. Even more so now. And I do think that, like, for instance, if there's an auction situation, how is every editor going to be able to drop everything and read the books? You will see that they very often say, well, the concept is good and we can work with it and all of that kind of stuff. So yes, I tried to be balanced, but yes, unfortunately it can be like Jerry Maguire or something like that. For sure. Yeah.
And that leads into my last question, which is about you said you'd had 5 agents. You got another one, Susan?
I'm sorry. There's one more on this subject that ties in. I apologize.
That's all right.
Before we go, this last one is it's meaty. We'll be there for a minute. But it related to this topic, Pat Dupuy says, I don't know about you all, but descriptions of books that start off book A meets book B irritate the heck out of me. If I haven't read those books, that description means nothing. It also strikes me as lazy. Am I too critical? And the comment that came to me was that this sounds a bit like the book club's response, because they weren't familiar with some of the books, and they were like, what? Because they had not read some of the books that Claire was pitching.
That point.
Well, I know it's real because I see the pitches,
Oh yes, that's what it's all about now.
But
XYZ title meets XYZ title.
Absolutely. Those are called comps or mashups.
Right.
Yeah.
And publishing, I know that is quite common, but to Pat's point, for readers, it's not meaningful at all, because if you haven't read those books, then it means nothing to you. It's completely lost on you. And I guess the assumption is many editors that the agent is pitching to have read the books.
Yes, they're familiar. And this is a little known thing maybe that readers probably wouldn't know, is when a book comes up, when an editor is considering purchasing a book, they have to do what's called a P&L statement of profit and loss statement. And they, in that profit and loss statement, they must include complementary titles or competitive titles, like, like, oh, this is just like The Secret History or whatever like that. So they will look at the sales history of those comps and see what they can offer, from the sales of those books. And so that's why those mashups, those comps are so important. And they're mostly for publishing, like you said. However, publicists and authors will sell their books with common vibes, like maybe Steel Magnolia meets Gilmore Girls or something like that. So they'll use more familiar kind of mood terms. You'll see that all the time. I'm sure you see it in Facebook ads.
Oh yeah, all the time, all the time. But I just like the reader's point, that often the reader might not have read one or both of the.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Those comps that you read in like something like Publishers Marketplace, like, whoa, what is this? I don't know.
Very helpful for the publishing industry, but it's not necessarily helpful.
I have often been or had a Publishers Marketplace subscription, and it's fascinating to watch those deals. It really is. And then you're right. Some of them you come across, and then the book doesn't do well, and you never hear from that author again. So it's an interesting.
So that means we should hope for a small advance.
Well, you're more likely to earn that back. But on the other hand, with large advances, the publisher is going to put a lot of money. They'll send you on tour maybe, or they will, pitch a lot heavier with media and so on.
Okay. And so now to your last question.
Okay, still about publishing, and let's go back and say again. You mentioned a few minutes ago that you've had 5 agents, which is something to behold.
It's not uncommon. I'm going to say that.
I
have a lot, yeah.
And you've delved into a lot of truths about the book publishing industry. Everything from the competition among agents to the reality that poorly written books, and I know this from working in book publicity myself, that poorly written books often get big advances and often make it to big lists. So in your own writing life, some of your novels have been agented by these 5 agents and published by big houses like Simon and Schuster. And now you choose to manage book publication on your own. And I wondered if you would speak to that or talk about the evolution of your publishing life, those decisions.
Oh yeah, great. That's a great question. My first 5 books were all, more than that. I've only self-published 2 on my own because I also had a medium-sized publisher as well. I forget about them sometimes, but anyway. So, and I did it because I was on my 5th agent, and I had this book called Sudden Fame, and it was on submission for a year. And we had heard back from 2 or 3 editors, I think. And I said, my goodness, I am a woman of a certain age. I'll just say, I am 64 years old. I don't have this kind of time, And so I decided, you know what? I had gotten the rights back to all my other books, and I had reissued those myself. And I said, well, I have that skill base. Why don't I just try to publish this by myself? So I did. And then the Pitch Queen was also, because it's critical of publishing, I just thought, I'm just publishing that myself, because I felt like maybe, publishing business wouldn't want to publish that. I'm not sure that's true. I don't know, but I just decided, but I wanted to tell this story. Now, does that mean that I'm going to stay self-published? I think I'm going to pick and choose, sometimes I'll say I might try to sell a novel to a big publisher, and sometimes I might not. It's a very different business than when I first got in. It's not as easy to get a book in. There's
Right.
you really genre is very important, right? Right now, genre is super important, and certain genres are very important.
Right. And even within the different genres, there are things, and you mentioned something that triggered this a few minutes ago. I mean, publishing's a business.
Yes.
Publishers decide these are the kinds of things we want to publish.
Right.
And you can sit at home and write your novel, but you don't know what they have already decided to publish. And when you finish that novel and your agent submits it, even if you have a very good agent, and even if she knows all the editors and if it is not something that they have previously decided amongst themselves without announcing it, that they are going to publish, then you're just out of luck. And
that is exactly right.
Next project, bring us your next project.
Yeah, and the author's worked on it for 2 years.
And to your point, some of us are not getting any younger.
So I'm the senior on the screen.
We have to get on with it past a certain point.
Well, that's the way I feel.
Yeah, I just can't keep shooting at that target that keeps moving, and hoping to hit it,
Right, hoping that this week they want a book about X or
right.
Well, and we know, I mean, both y'all know your audience, and I know that. I mean, I write for the audience,
right.
People that read my books. I know that I can put up a certain book, and like the Pitch Queen, I said, well, it's going to be at a beach, because my readers like that sort of thing, and it's going to be upbeat, it's going to have a happy ending and all of that kind of stuff. So it's funny to me, the publishers will say, well, I don't know if we want to put this out, but we know, because we know our readers, that there's plenty of people that read books like that. So. But
and it's their targets constantly move,
Yes.
based on who knows, what goes into that, and it's their right, it's their business. But I just think that my business and their business do not line up. And not so far.
Yeah, I mean,
I've not been that fortunate so far.
And one example is the World War II fiction, right? I keep thinking it's going to go ahead and die a natural death. I mean, there's been hundreds, it seems like, of novels, and some of them quite good, written on World War II. Okay. But it just keeps going. I guess this a profit and loss sheet. It keeps selling for.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but then it doesn't. And actually they have fallen out of favor. That's the problem. The market gets oversaturated, and people are like rom-coms. I mean,
right.
And they all have the same cover,
Oh gosh, they do.
How can you distinguish yourself in that market?
Just spent 3 years writing a really fine novel about something that happened in World War II, and out of luck.
Now it's evaporated. Yeah. But there's I guess a follow-on that I had to this that I did not put down, but talk to us about, like, you're dabbling in a few other things. I get your Substack, and I think, so tell us about the other things that you're doing now in this phase of your career.
Well, I for many years was taught writing at the college level, and I really liked that. And now that I'm retired from that, I wanted to replace that teaching aspect. So I have a Substack called Pitch Your Novel, which, because is how to teach. What I want to do is teach writers how to present themselves in this very competitive market. And that includes things like mashups and comps. The way when I wrote a query letter back 20-something years ago is completely different now. So I enjoy helping writers with that. And also, I've always been really good at query letters. Query letter, by the way, is the letter that you send to agents describing your project. It's a completely different skill set than writing a novel, and very few novelists are good at it. So I like to help them with that, because so often they are wonderful writers, but they don't know how to sell themselves.
This is a gift that you have, I will attest to. And I was just telling Susan
this
earlier,
is a great story.
The story where I was stalking Karin, because her agent at the time, Jenny Bent, had up somewhere, I forget where she posted it, that your query letter was phenomenal, and it was an example of a great query letter. And that's how I first ever heard of Karin and how to pronounce her name, because it was somewhere, I think then I went to look up you, and it was like, it's pronounced Karin, like car in the ditch. And I'm like,
that's right. Yeah. So, it's a shame that is such a different skill set, and I feel like a lot of stories won't get told that way, and I really enjoy doing it. I just love doing it and helping that way. So, that is a passion for me. Yes, of course.
Okay, so now tell us what you're working on currently in terms of a book, and if it's for something you think you'll publish yourself, or if it's something you're going to submit, or what are your plans?
Oh, well, I'm so glad you've asked me that. So I just finished a book called The Woman Who Loved Halloween, because I love Halloween.
Oh.
And it's a Southern novel, of course, but it's about a woman who loves Halloween so much, and she summons this crone, and this crone has her, she's a really proper Southern woman, but the crone has her saying things that she would never say out loud. and how that affects her life. So that's done. And I haven't decided about that one yet, but here's the weird thing. Like several years ago, I wrote what's called a cozy fantasy, which no one had ever heard of. And it's about older women who are like, have these special powers and want to save the world and all this kind of stuff. And there was no market for that, but now it's a huge market. It's called cozy fantasy. So I'm thinking about marketing that one to agents and so on. But so I just put it aside because nobody was like, what is this? I don't understand.
Well, fantasy is huge. I know that.
Yeah. But cozy fantasy, like, cottage core and, sweet characters, low stakes, that kind of stuff. Yeah. So those are my two things. And so I've got those two going, and the Halloween one won't come out until, more August. Probably I'll self-publish that one.
So the cozy fantasy one that you're thinking you might submit, what's the title of that?
Midnight Tea Society.
Oh, okay. Oh, that sounds fun.
Oh, that's cute.
Okay.
That's a good mashup.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Well, they're like these older ladies, and they're, they say their motto is
sinister
we'll save the world. What? What?
I said you've got the sinister midnight element with the
the darkness.
Of tea.
Exactly.
That sounds fun.
It does.
All right.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to ask if there's anything that we haven't asked that you'd like to talk about this book or another book or publishing or really anything.
I can't think of anything offhand, really. I think we did a good job of covering. I mean, I think we have really, gone all over the world publishing and
what do authors like to talk about more than the publishing industry?
Exactly.
Yeah. It's just, it's such an exciting time for authors to be able to, my mind, I'm sure same with you, is always perking with ideas. And I've been doing this for 20 years now. So finally I figure like I kind of know what I'm doing, so it's fun to be able to make these things happen. I'm able to write a lot faster than I used to. So.
Right. Yeah, I'm thinking that I'm hoping to enter a phase now where I can write faster than I used to.
I can't write fast at all.
It hasn't worked well, but I'm hoping that I'm about to hit that stride. I'm planning to hit that stride.
Oh, you write? Don't you write about two? Do you write two?
I'm trying to write 2 a year. Generally, the last couple of years, it's just been one, and I have really, really struggled with the one just because we've had so many family health emergencies and that kind of thing going on. And it's really, it's impacted me a lot. But I'm hoping if we can, get past that episode, then I would like to do 2 a year. That's my goal. Wow. I don't think I will ever be able to do more than 2 a year. I think that's pretty much the limit for me. But if I could do that, I think
That's
I'd
great.
be.
I'm sitting here thinking that I can spend 4 hours on 2 pages sometimes.
Oh, sure. I mean, I agree with it. I agree with you. But what used to slow me down was I just didn't know what was going to happen.
Yeah.
And I would go down a lot of wrong alleys, which I just don't seem to do anymore.
So good with mystery. I mean,
Oh.
she's just good at
Well,
mystery.
thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, I really admire that skill because I have never written a mystery, and I mean, you really have to study that. Did you love reading mysteries?
Always.
Yeah.
I loved Nancy Drew and Trixie Belden as a child, and then I graduated to Victoria Holt and that kind of Phyllis Whitney and those kind, and then romantic suspense, and then eventually started reading Sue Grafton and
I love her. So
yeah, me too, and
Yeah.
just Robert B. Parker, and so many different ones that I really really enjoy.
Oh, I want to ask you a question about mystery. Oh,
Okay.
are you okay? Are you okay? So, it seems like these murders in the building and these intergenerational mysteries are really hot these days. What do you think about that?
So they are hot. I think cozy mysteries in general are seeing a little bit of a resurgence or whatever. It's like they're the cool kids now. The cozy mysteries.
Yes.
When I started publishing cozy mysteries, because mine are traditional mysteries, because I do have a professional investigator.
Right.
And so I did not want to be called a cozy mystery.
You're not a cozy. Yeah, you're right.
And now I embrace that fully because it's
hot.
Okay,
Yeah.
Richard Osman is publishing.
Yes.
And you've got the Only Murders in the Building, and you've got the Finley Donovan books, and you've got there are a lot of stuff that is cozy that we weren't seeing before, and then of course all the cozy mysteries that everyone has always loved and so forth. But I think I want to be careful that I don't give the impression that I thought cozy mystery was some sort of a slander. It's not that at all. I love cozy mysteries, but it's just I had a professional investigator.
That's right.
And that was not the norm for cozy mysteries. And so
Right.
I tried to be, I write private investigator mysteries, but
Right.
anyway, it's a different time. And the Only Murders in the Building, I think that being very popular. But the downside to that is, and this is what I got caught in with the book my agent submitted. It was Big Trouble on Sullivan's Island, and she loved that book. I mean, she had no edits for me whatsoever, and she sent it out on submission, and she was, indicated that she really thought that she could sell it. And 6 months later, no bites, and everyone, different editors had different things to say and all this, but a common recurring theme was that I had a professional investigator. And they did not want a professional investigator. They had not had good luck with private investigators.
See, we're back to,
and
you gotta, it's not about the writing. It's about, did you check off? We need this, and this. That is not what writing is supposed to be.
So it was, you should have written it as a group of friends solve a mystery, not with a professional investigator, like Only Murders in the Building. That was the thing that was brought up repeatedly was, write something like Only Murders in the Building. And that's just not where my heart is. I like to write a private investigator.
And it's just,
I don't want to be involved with police procedurals.
Yeah.
That's too technical, and there are too many rules. My private investigators break a lot of rules. And I'm a rule breaker from way back. But I do enjoy writing and reading private investigators. But it's not a big thing with big publishers. They don't want a private investigator.
And so many authors are switching, and I'm thinking, ooh, do they like mystery? That's the thing. It's like I'm telling you, you have to switch all the time. It's like, well, I came up when chick lit was big. Well, chick lit's dead, so you had to switch gears,
I think we're just calling them rom-coms now.
Yeah. Well, rom-com is and chick lit are very related, except, chick lit, you didn't have to you always had a romance, but it didn't have to be the main focus.
Right.
So, yeah.
Oh gosh, all these genres, and when I was worried.
I know. It's like quick change artist.
Yeah, but I should just say my category is general fiction because my books are all, I just finished a manuscript for the third one. They are all just as different from one another as they can possibly be.
Well, but I think your new project, I think it's definitely women's fiction, but it's or it
it's a
can be
story
if
of two. It's two
very
women.
literary women's fiction. I haven't read it, but I assure you, it's very literary because Susan wrote.
And I admire that very much.
No, that was not at all meant to be a negative thing.
No,
I admire your writing.
But the subject is, two sort of damaged women end up, one is supposed to tell her life story to the other, and she does, but the other one ends up telling some of her life story, and there's they sort of heal each other.
It sounds like I guess you could what they love to call upmarket, which is
I think perhaps that's a good thing to aim for. So
yeah, it sounds exciting. It really does, because we talked about it a little bit. So
yes, we did in our group.
Yeah.
Well, this has been so much fun.
It has. Thank you so much for. Wow. It just flew by. So, and I really am hankering for some dessert now. So.
Well, we will have to do this again when your next book comes out, and you will have to come and join us here.
That's right.
So that we can.
I would love. So y'all both live in. Well, Susan, you live.
I'm here in Spartanburg, where we are in the Fremont Club. Yeah,
that's right.
And it's about. It shouldn't take this long, but it takes me about an hour to get here
with the traffic.
Okay, right, with traffic and everything. And you don't. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But and I love Spartanburg. Because I went to Converse, so I have a special place in my heart for Spartanburg.
It is. I went to Converse too as an undergraduate 1,000 years ago, and never left. I never left town.
What's that wonderful place? That it's really famous. It's got a lighthouse, maybe or something. What?
The Beacon.
Yes, that's it. That's fun.
I haven't eaten that in 30 years.
Oh yeah, it's pretty greasy, but delicious.
Yeah, it's delicious. I'm trying so hard to eat healthy, but today I fell completely short of that. I had dessert at lunch and everything. I don't know what I was thinking. Why did y'all let me do that?
Do you know how many bakeries there are in Savannah? Bakery is in my mind all the time. Baked goods, it's impossible. That's why I'm walking all the time.
I'm gonna have to walk more. Well, this has been so much fun. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Well, so I'm really excited. Thank you so much. It's really good seeing both y'all again. Bye.